he hasn't met yet.
Grant, he said, who cares about the regular season? It doesn't matter. We don't agree with that at NBA TV and are glad to watch Crunch Time and Game Time every single night during the season, of course, so you can see them. But then the postseason came, and now who cares about that? We know he cares about what he's going to get paid. If there are teams watching, how can that be exemplary of a guy you want to go pay max money to lead your basketball team?
Well, it's tough. I mean, look, players can have bad games, and obviously he's had a series of bad games this series against Milwaukee. But the talk, these conversations, these press conferences, and not just now, but really sort of throughout the season, sort of trying to justify and explain the poor play or the team not reaching expectations. It's like he's burying himself in a hole. And I just feel like it's not attractive. It's sort of sending a message, not just to the fans and the standards that exist, as Isaiah talked about in Boston, but I think it's sending a message to everyone that great talent, unbelievable in terms of what he can do on the court, not playing great at this moment. But is he a leader? Is he that main guy? Is he the number one guy? Or is he better off partnered with a guy like when he was in Cleveland with LeBron James? And so that's what we start to question. Does he have it within him to carry that responsibility? Isaiah was a point guard and was one of the great leaders in the history of the game. And there's just a certain accountability, a certain responsibility, a certain standard, as you alluded to, that comes with that. And he has not demonstrated that, particularly this year, and particularly now in the postseason when his team needs that from him at this, being down 3-1 against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Grant, you grew up around the Dallas franchise, the Cowboys, and being a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys is different than being a quarterback, for some other organization. And would you say that being a leader for the Boston Celtics is similar to being a leader for the Dallas Cowboys at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certain franchises that embody that standard. You can talk about the Cowboys, you can talk about the Celtics,
Yankees,
the Yankees in baseball, and it's about excellence. It's about being responsible, about winning championships, hanging banners, and Roger Staubach or Troy Aikman or guys like that. It's just different, and so. That's the thing that's been disappointing because you can't question his talent, but his leadership, I question that. And I don't want to. I talk about the brother.
You're not alone.
I want to see him excel and thrive in that role, but I haven't seen it, and I've been disappointed in that, to be quite honest.
Let's be fair and have some real talk, and I covered it. The only time Derek Jeter said, who cares, if he brought up individual accolades about him.
Yeah.
Who cares? Because I'm trying to win. Not the reverse. Here's what I'm doing. Who cares what it means? And by the way, it gets worse. That in a second on today's presser. Let's go back and look into the footage. Take us to the footage, G. When you look at what we have with Kyrie, he says, I should take 30 shots. What's wrong with his game right now when we kind of look specifically at the shot taking?
Well, I think a couple things. First of all, give credit to Milwaukee. I mean, Eric Bledsoe's done a fantastic job of harassing him. But nothing is easy right now. He's not getting to the rim. You got great length defensively. They are forcing him to his left. He's settling for some shots. When he's struggling, he's not getting to the free throw line. And, right here, this is a play that we've accustomed to see him doing. You got great spacing. Guys are standing around. It's like he's almost pressing a little bit. And all those shots were early in the shot clock. Mm-hmm. And so he's coming down trying to sort of play hero ball and do it all himself, as opposed to finding guys, shifting the defense, getting some rhythm collectively before you go into a shot. I question, is he healthy? I mean, how's his body? I know he sat out of some games at the end of the season, resting his knee. But he just doesn't look right. And this is something we haven't seen. Kyrie Irving in the postseason, not playing, not stepping up to the challenge. That combined with the comments, it's just, as you talked about, he may not care, but those fans in Boston, they care.
They played 2 games at home, lost almost every effort play, no defensive continuity. The culture seems to be erratic. Kyrie and Brad Stevens, all of a sudden the vest is off, and now people are saying, okay, well, what does this mean for him? A lot more conversation on this during this show. We get you ready for a double dip, which includes a game where are the Rockets the more confident team going to Golden State for PJ Tucker has been that guy. The it factor, it's there. The desire, it permeates throughout the Rockets, and the difference in what they do offensively and defensively has been something we've seen now for a couple of years. And it's part of that physicality that Steve Kerr admits differentiates these two teams.
They got a lot of middle linebackers on that team. They're sturdy, and we look like more like volleyball players, long and lean. But we've done this many times before, and we've played all kinds of different teams, and everybody tries to be physical with us, and because they should. That's the best way to try to beat us. And so Houston's very physical. They're very good, but I'll go back to it again. We know what we have to do.
One of the things they need to do is to bring the fight to Houston the way Houston guys has been bringing it to Golden State, and they seem to have found and remember now that secret potion, even though a couple of different players, Ariza Bamute not here, that they had a couple of years last year. PJ part of that. Extended plays, tips, the little things. How much to a team and to winning basketball does that make a difference, even with a star like a James Harden, Grant?
No, it makes a huge difference. I mean, he plays with a chip on his shoulder. He plays with a chip on his shoulder, and that's sort of how he has made a way for himself in the NBA. Hustle plays, making a block shot on Steph Curry. Weak side, obviously, his shooting has improved, and that's allowed him to stay on the court, particularly with Houston, knocking down the corner three, which is his shot. Doesn't deviate from that. Does what he does. And right here, getting in Kevin Durant, not giving him any space, getting his feet, and obviously active hands, aggressiveness right there. Kevin Durant probably having the best postseason of anyone offensively and has done fantastic against Houston. But PJ Tucker's a guy that's not scared. He's going to take the challenge, and if he gets embarrassed, he's going to get embarrassed. But you know what? He's going to come back the next play and go at and attack Durant. Everything Durant gets against him, he's truly earning. It's almost like a 6'7", 240, 250-pound Patrick Beverley.
Yeah, I was going to say, Pat Bev was here.
6'4".
Okay. I was trying to help you. PJ.
No, you're right, because Pat Bev was here sitting in that seat a couple of days
He has
ago
the same mentality.
talking about this game, and it's the same sort of thing that Marcus Smart brings to the Celtics, although maybe a little bit too late for that series. But
Hey, was you afraid of Patrick when he was sitting? I mean, he was sitting here like this.
So let me tell you something.
He was sitting here like, I'm ready.
Well, he wasn't
to
me
play
mugging.
defense.
He wasn't me mugging you.
No.
Okay, I was gonna say,
But he
he
was
might-
sitting like he was ready to play defense, like he was jumping through the screen.
In the last 2 weeks, I had Tibbs and Pat Beverly sitting next to me. I'm like, if I can make it through that, I'm ready for the season. Zeke, when you look at what PJ does, I notice little things. Notice how many times over the last couple of years at the pressers and into the arena, right next to Harden and Paul. They know his importance. And I want to ask you as somebody, because your team had everybody had this culture. But when you've got a guy like PJ who's bringing that effort, how much does it force? Because look, James Harden has had a lot of usage, right, all year. That if you're getting tired in that minute, you see that dude do it, you're going to go ahead and raise that level of effort defensively because you want to match what he's doing.
I said this early in the year. He's the perfect teammate for Harden. And he's the perfect teammate for that team. Because it's a team that really plays after Harden gets done playing, right? Harden has the ball and everybody has to stand around. So they really have to wait, be patient, and then take their shot, make their shot when they get it. There's not a lot of movement. So he understanding that has been very influential, I think, to the other teammates on the team and making sure that, look, I'm accepting my role. And Austin, you got to accept yours. This is how it's going to be here. CP, this is hard. I think he does all that behind the scenes. And I think he makes all of it happen. But I'm not surprised, Grant, that Golden State finds themselves in a very tough series. I think people forgot last year, this series went 7, right? Golden State, Houston went 7. And Golden State won the 7th game in Houston. So I'm not surprised that we're at a game 5. I don't think Golden State is surprised that they're in a dogfight. Houston was expecting a dogfight. I think other people looking in probably thought, oh, this will end in 4, this will end in 5, Golden State's so good. But I expected this to go 7, and I think Golden State having home court advantage will come through at home in a game 7 where Houston couldn't.
We'll hit the Warriors side later, but think about this for a second. Even with the Splash Brothers, you got Durant, you got Harden. If you cross them out and say somewhat about even they both played great, next best player in the series hasn't been Draymond or either of the Splash Brothers. It's been a Hoosier. Eric.
Who's does?
That's a problem for Golden State. We'll get into that later. 2 big games and swing games and all sorts of stuff to learn, and including the fact that
Any Duke guys in this?
there are a couple of Duke. Well, Kyrie played with 9 games. I think he was not there for 9 games.
The brotherhood.
Jason Tatum was there a little bit
Jason
longer than
Tatum, he
that.
was there.
Giannis is the Duke of basketball, and everywhere else, the King of the North.
He would have gone to Duke if he grew up in the state.
Big night of playoff action. Celtics and Bucks. We're leading up to that on TNT. Then Rockets and Warriors. And a guy who has certainly been a Warrior first couple of years was the Rookie of the Year and helps out the Bucks big time. Malcolm Brogdon will not start, but he is back and will play. Here's Coach Bud before the game.
Malika Andrews, ESPN. But have you thought any more about what exactly the minutes restriction Malcolm will be on tonight? And you said he'll play in kind of short spurts. What's the time restrictions on those spurts?
I'm not going to give you all the details and all the information. It will be short spurts, and he will be on a minutes restriction. And yes, we've thought about it.
Matt Velasquez, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. When it comes to Malcolm, do you try and script out times where they've kind of prescribed opportunities to get him in, or do you try to mix him in kind of as the flow of the game progresses?
I would say with everybody that's kind of mapped out to play, we go into the game with a plan and hopefully able to mix a good amount of feel and gut with a plan. So have a good idea about when and where we'll try and include Malcolm, but you can't just put your head down in the sand and not watch to see what's going on too.
Eric Name, The Athletic. Let's keep it rolling. With Malcolm, are there certain pairings you want to see him with? Like, obviously, he's been in the starting lineup for much of the year. Does it matter in such a short stint, like, to try to get him in with the starters or to get him in with the second group? Like, do you think about that at all?
Well, coaches, we can overthink everything. So, to some degree, yes, I think about those things, and we obviously are going to try and do our best, not just for Malcolm, but for everybody. There's a lot of thought that goes into combinations and guys that are playing together, and Malcolm's not any different than anybody else.
Moving off of Malcolm, but staying on injuries, what's going on with Pau? Is he anywhere near close to being able to play again? And then also, DJ was on the injury list. Is he going to be available tonight, and when did that happen?
We'll go with DJ first. DJ twisted his ankle yesterday, just in a one-on-one type workout post-practice or post-recovery. So he will not be available tonight. Pau, is continuing to rehab and make progress. It is obviously we'd all hope for it to be going faster and moving along. But there really is no new update or new change to Pau. We're hopeful that, at some point he will become available and he'll be an option, but it's not imminent or anywhere near.
When players come back from injuries, there's sometimes some rust that they've got to shake off. We saw that with Nico, George, Sterling, even Marcus the other night. What kind of advice do you give Malcolm as he goes into this return?
Just go out and play. He's been a great player. Not just this year, his whole life, and I think he has a real desire to help the team and do well for the team. And as long as his mindset is there, and he's doing little things that make us better and help us win, and I think always focusing on his defense. But at the end of the day, just go play basketball and not overthink it. Take advantage of those opportunities. The minutes. Sometimes it's harder when you're not playing as long, but you just gotta push it for however long you're out there, and continue to push forward and not be too caught up in how much you're doing or not doing, and just play.
Steve Ashburn, NBA.com. Where would you put this team's chemistry relative to other teams you've had, and how much has that evolved or changed over the course of the season?
Yeah, the easy thing to say is the chemistry is really, really great. And, you know, when you're living in the moment and you're feeling it and you're seeing it every day, you just know that this is, you know, really high level, you know, the kind of stuff that you want and aspire to for chemistry. And things in the past get a little bit fuzzy and everything, but there, you know, I certainly been fortunate to be around a lot of teams, either as a head coach or an assistant coach, that had great chemistry. And this group, you know, feels like it's in that, you know, upper echelon, and if not at the top. And I think those things matter, and you know, the caring and the getting along and the togetherness. Certainly something we take a lot of pride in cultivating, and you know, the group just takes to it. They've been great.
In terms of like chicken or egg, I mean, what comes first? Winning, gets you good chemistry because people are happy, or the chemistry?
All right, there's Coach Bud talking about chemistry. As we get a chance to bring in a guy who's always got that with the attire and the big smile.
See, Webb, that haircut looking good,
Who's out
baby.
there looking a lot better than the Celtics have last couple. Let me start with that. I mean, you know, as these two on set do with me, the onus that comes with being a leader of a team. If you're telling me if you're Kyrie, the regular season doesn't matter and the playoffs do, how can you tell me who cares when you're getting asked about your poor shooting in the series? What was your reaction to that?
I understood what he was saying. He should have taken 30 shots. I understand that after the game, but Isaiah talks about this all the time. There are bus drivers and there are passengers. And there are a lot of guys that have won championships as a passenger, and that's great. And then there are guys like myself that lost as a bus driver. Which one do you want to be? And I think right now you have players that are understanding and learning the pressure that you play under in the playoffs when you're the main guy, when there's nobody else to blame but you. The bus driver gets too much credit for wins and gets too much credit for losses. And can you handle that? How do you bounce back after a bad shooting game? That's why I'm impressed when a guy can go 7 for 22 and come back and shoot 10 for 20 the next game, because it can be in your head. How do you handle that differently? And this is the playoffs. It's not the regular season. So to expect the same success, you're misled. And then you don't honor the success that you have in the playoffs, even if it is on par with what you did during the season, because you're looking at numbers and not at the impact. And so, to me, a point guard is, to me, you can tell who a point guard is by how players like playing with him. And I think Kyrie is learning right now and navigating how to be a leader.
You know, see, Webb, when you talk about, you know, the guy who's driving the bus, you know, there's a guy on the other side in terms of Giannis who's driving the bus, and he lost the first game of the series at home. And when you compare his response to a loss and Kyrie's response to a loss, what have we seen in Giannis from a bounce back and a leadership standpoint that has separated him from everybody else in this series?
Two things: Zeke, humility by admitting that he played bad in the game one, and then two, taking responsibility. And come on, Zeke, you know you're the best small guard that ever played. I mean, Lambert was tough, Rodman was tough, Mahorn was tough, but they followed you as the leader. And when you said we need to do better, guys said, wow, Isaiah's taking it up on his back. He's being the fall guy for us. We're going to play hard for him. And I've seen Antetokounmpo do that. He said after game one, and he played hard, I did not play hard enough. I will play harder. What does your teammates have to do then? They better step up. And so, to me, you know, just his leadership and his humility is refreshing. He, you know, after being a fan of basketball for so long and a fan of your era and the eras that have come before that, and of course my era and after that, but your era and the ones, he reminds me more of an old school player than maybe anyone in the NBA. Not just because he takes it inside and he plays, not just because, you know, he plays so hard, but I remember doing an All-Star game 2 years ago, and all the guys were saying, come on, Giannis, quit playing so hard. And so, I mean, he's a leader, and that's I've fallen in love with his game, Zeke.
Hey, Chris, you know, obviously Giannis has been fantastic, but George Hill, off the bench for the Bucks, has been great as well. Obviously, plus 38 plus minus, which is the highest plus minus of a Milwaukee player on the court, shooting 60% from the field, 46 from the three-point line, and really has done a fantastic job of frustrating Kyrie Irving when he's guarded him defensively using his length. Just talk about what you've seen in person from the bench overall from Milwaukee, but more in particular, George Hill and his play.
Well, let's think about it. Bud and G. Hill were in San Antonio together. And so George Hill talks about, how he wanted to stay in San Antonio, how he wanted to win. Well, guess what? You got traded and they got Kawhi. So you're just going to have to live with that. And that probably was the right thing for San Antonio to do. But as far as what George Hill has been doing on the court has just been wonderful. He's a guy that you could trust. Let's remember, Brogdon has been out this series. We expect him to play tonight, but Brogdon's been out. You needed someone steady. You needed someone that kept the pace going, that could spread the floor, that's daring enough to get inside and shoot. I mean, you think about it, Bledsoe really hasn't played great this series, and it's been because of the play of George Hill and others off the bench. I think moving Ilyasova off the bench, I think Ilyasova has come in and played great. But I also think moving Nikola to the starting lineup and his shooting has helped out so much. But G. Hill, you're right, the bench for this Bucks team has been so steady that they're what's going. When Giannis goes out the game, you can depend on the bench to even increase the pace and sometimes increase the lead. You can't say enough about George Hill and the guys coming off the pine.
Webb, two things I got to say before we leave. First of all, I'm with 3 Hall of Famers right now. To anybody who knows the game, that's number 1. And 2, when we split screened your stash and G. Hill's beard, I got mesmerized. I forgot where I was for a second. Between the two. Look at that. Look at that right there.
G. Hill had some. I had to take my mustache down. It was getting a little too Ron Jeremy-ish, like Canadian. I had to shave it.
Family
At
show.
least that's the jokes I got on Instagram.
This isn't Studio J. Family show.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Well, appreciate you, man. Enjoy. We'll be watching.
Love you guys. Love you.
Congratulations on the Black Masters.
Black Masters,
There it
baby.
is.
We taking it next year, Webb. We taking it next year.
We gonna get it, G.
That's what everyone at Duke says this year, Will. Meanwhile, too harsh? Is that too soon? Kawhi, he was only supposed to be a really good defensive player coming in, speaking of draftees. About all that, we'll talk about the leader of the Raps on the other side.